really loose.
Oh,
Not
can
at all.
you smell the actinomycetes in that?
So how long has it been composting?
Yeah. Smells like
This
bitter.
stuff probably 10 months.
So you can use it right away. You don't have to let it sit.
It's
after you process it.
yeah. Once it cools back down. Actually, when I was moving the pile of finished stuff, the temperature actually climbed back up to 90 degrees or so. So it could even go another few months. I think about a year would be the ideal time frame, because then you're getting a lot of the other the microorganisms moving back into the pile that are that can't survive that heat. They'll come back in after the fact. Right now we've got a lot of worms that have come back into the pile, so I consider it finished.
How faded? I'll come back to it.
And the seedlings that I've transplanted into this 100% compost, I didn't see any yellowing or curling of the leaves or any of that, so we're still testing it. One or two of the piles didn't reach temperature or stay at temperature long enough, so we are seeing a few weed seeds germinating in it. But fingers crossed, once we get the grant for the composting operation, we'll have, they have really nice thermometers nowadays that actually send the information to the cloud. So anywhere I go, I can just pull out my phone and check all of my compost piles and monitor the temperatures.
Wow.
So when one drops below 130, I can come out and turn it and get the temperature to pop back up. I believe it's 13 days, 13 or 14 days you have to have that 130 degrees. And those new thermometers will make it so that I don't have to go out there and stuff a probe in every pile every day to make sure that I'm holding those temperatures. You can just pull the phone out wherever I am in the state or in anywhere and know what my piles are doing.
So you're tracking all that data.
I will be, especially once it's done for me like that. Then I can just refer back to that and say, well, this pile should probably get run back through because we didn't meet the temperature requirements the entire time. So then we can add some more crab to it, get the temperature back up, and start monitoring it again.
That's what you do, is add more crab? Or?
Well, mixing it back up with more crab, more carbon.
Oh, okay.
So that being said, will there be a formula, and do you know how much volume of crab is in there?
Not exactly. No, we don't really monitor
Quantities
weight or any of that, just number of crab that we're pulling each year. So, and it's still kind of, I'm still working on the recipe. When I start adding food scraps and landscape trimmings like grass and stuff to it, it tends to throw the pile off and it doesn't reach temperature as quickly. If I just use wood chips and crab, 2 days later I've got 150 degrees in the pile.
So
but once I mix other stuff in, it kind of...
So when you get your new operation composting, you're going to have enclosed bins, right? So it'll heat up quicker?
No, actually the enclosed bins are less productive than having it open. So the training that I went to, they said that airflow is one of the most important concerns. Even if you build the big windrow piles that are 8 feet tall and 12 feet wide or whatever, those have to be turned more often because air is not getting to the center. What we'll be doing are 5 foot tall piles, 8 foot wide or so, and they'll be turned with a compost turner, a windrow turner. So we have plans of purchasing a skid steer that the compost turner will attach to the front. It hangs off one side and comes up over the pile and has a drum that has flails that are
Oh, yeah.
With spikes
throwing
on
it up
them
in
or
the
something.
air, and
Yeah.
after you come to the end, you can look back down it, and it's just a uniform triangular shaped long row, and I'll be able to come through whenever necessary and run the turner through it. A lot of operations are running a pipe through the center of those rows and trying to aerate it as well. We're small scale, we're thinking just windrows undercover so that we don't have the rain concern. Being so close to the water here, we don't want all of this rain to be leaching any excess nitrogen out in there.
So it could actually be a structure like this.
It will be
Yeah.
similar to this, just much taller, and same idea with the trusses, so that there won't be any posts in the middle of the building. It'll be on a concrete slab so that when there is leachate, it'll be able to be contained and collected.
Scraped off, yeah.
Yeah, it'll drain off of the pad into a trough. Then from that collection area, will be able to be pumped back onto fresh piles and
Wow.
recycled.
Can't wait to see that.
So,
So-
whose idea was it to start using it for compost?
That would be me. Well, when we
job.
started the garden, it was a field of gorse and scotch broom mainly.
Yeah.
Probably 70% of the plants out here were gorse and scotch broom. They crowded everything else out, and I cleared an area and put a 12 by 12 fence because it was fence that we had laying around. We scrounged that up and put up a 12 by 12 fence and a couple of raised beds with fencing over the top of them to keep the deer from eating what was in the raised beds. And then it just kept picking up steam and growing, and the larger the garden got, the higher the demand for compost. We were bringing compost in from Montesano Farm and Feed, or whatever it's called out there. And I found out that they were getting their mushroom compost from Eastern Washington, I do believe. So it's trucked over to there, and then it's trucked out here. And I was like, this is absurd.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
we've
right.
got all the stuff to make compost here in our community. Why are we trucking it across the state? So then when the green crab came up, it's like, bring them, bring them. And we started trying to just chip them without freezing them.
Oh,
That was just
that just sounds
disastrous. Like,
That'll be a great help to gardeners around here too, because we don't have any place to put that stuff. A lot of us are burning it or just throwing it out back.
yeah, absolutely. And people all through Pacific County have piles that they just keep adding to in their backyard that
Pretty
never
much.
gets turned or anything. And if we have that one day a week where drop-offs can come in, we'll have a scale so they can drive across the scale, weigh their truck, and then drive back across the scale on their way out.
Well, is there any possibility, like in Seattle, they have not only recycled garbage, but they also have yard waste? If you could work over to Maine and maybe have them do what yard waste pickup for people, that, they could charge for that, but then bring it to you.
That would be the perfect world scenario. Out here, I'm not sure how long it'll take for us to get to that point, but I have a flatbed trailer and roll-around bins that I take to the tribal kitchen. We're still working on trying to get the casino on board. The gas station sells their hot case food and some produce. We want to team up with the cannery down here and start bringing their waste. The hot case food from the gas station, I have a whole nother motive for taking that. I recently started growing black soldier fly larvae because of our chickens, and now meat birds that we're starting this year. The protein in these black soldier fly larvae is through the roof in comparison to what has typically been used as a chicken supplement, mealworms. They're scrawny in comparison to these black soldier fly larvae, and they can have 40 to 60% protein depending on what you feed them. So, and they prefer fatty American diet to anything fried. They'll just rub it down, and that makes them swell up that much faster. At this point, I've been using a lot of the food scraps from the kitchen. They mainly go to the chickens directly, or to the larvae and then to the chickens. Not much of it actually gets put into the compost piles other than onions, things that the chickens don't have any interest in. The soldier fly will eat the onions, but then I'm picking out the onion skins out of the bins, and it's just more headache than it's worth. So onions and potatoes, skins and stuff like that go to the compost pile. Sounds like it's raining even harder now.
Yes. So Travis, how long has all of this been in the works?
This will be our 8th year. When the first year, like I said, it was a 12 by 12 rinky-dink garden that I watered with, I took my truck, put coolers in the back of the truck, filled those with water, drove out here, popped the little drain spout on the cooler and filled my watering can and watered the garden that way. And last year was the first year we had got water lines out here. And this spring I finished the high tunnel. The Group Health Foundation grant paid for the shed here, the green pack shed out at the end of the driveway, and all the fencing. And this year we ended up with the First Nations Development Institute grant that we purchased pressure canners, materials for building the meat bird coops, processing equipment for processing the meat birds. So we've got a nice big scalder with a crank. So you throw the birds in there, and it monitors the temperature and keeps it right where you need the scalding water, and you just crank the crank and it dunks the birds for you. Originally we were doing it old school with a big pot on a propane burner, and you have to shove it down in there with a spatula or something and try to tumble the bird. Just not very efficient when you're dealing with a large quantity of birds.
So I'm a city girl. Explain what a meat bird is, other than chicken.
Cornish cross
Oh, okay.
are the typical meat birds. In 8 to 9 weeks, you can harvest an 8 or 9 pound bird. Our layers, after 2 to 3 years, we harvest those for meat as well, but you end up with a 3 pound bird, maybe 4 if it's a rooster. So the difference there is just mind-blowing. When it comes to a layer, you can barely get your hand in to get the insides out, and the Cornish cross, it's a whole different world when it comes to processing.
So you're selling nuts?
No, nothing's sold at this point. In the future, maybe we'll have a farm stand and make the produce available to the public. All the food goes directly back to the tribal community.
That's great.
Yeah, when we started this, we were limited to funding sources because a lot of the funding, it had to be a farm that was producing something for money. And if you're not making money, then we're not going to give you money. So now we found other grants, like with Inatai, formerly Group Health. They have been really open to whatever we want to use the money for, we can use the money for it. So it's been a game changer for us. We've been able to do so much.
So something like this structure, what are you looking at cost-wise?
I believe, well, the big problem was we had to bring it from the other side of the country because all of the high tunnels that I found nearby say in writing, in red writing on the website, not for use in high wind areas. they're made out of poles that are
Yeah, thin.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so any that have this heavy duty pole like this are coming from high snow load areas. We don't really have that concern right here, so we ended up spending almost right around $3,000 in shipping just to get it here, and the high tunnel itself was only $5,000.
Really?
And then the hours and everything, and the fabric, and this is watering.
Yeah, the drip irrigation
drip
and all
irrigation.
that was funded by group health as well. We already had a lot of that on hand because we bought it with our first grant. But yeah, the high tunnel ended up costing us around $8,000 with shipping and all that, I do believe. You can find them much cheaper, but I don't think you're going to find one as rugged as this.
How long will the plastic hold up?
5 years,
theory.
supposedly. We'll see with our wind.
Right, yeah.
So when it's really windy, do you keep these down? Does that help?
Oh, you got to close them up tight.
Oh, when it's windy.
So it lifts up, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
these
that-
are drop-down curtains.
Was that your invention, Travis? The mechanical engineering? Because it's
No,
all operated by
actually,
one frame.
That's their design.
That's a great design. I like it.
I like the drop-down idea because it's keeping
Airflow.
pests from coming in.
Yeah.
Because if you have the curtains that raise up, rabbits and other pests can just wander right in. Yeah, without the drop-down curtains, I wouldn't even want a high tunnel because opening all the doors in here, it's still too darn hot. I haven't grown anything in here yet. The goal is during the summertime to do cucumbers or peppers, cucumbers, and tomatoes, and then all winter long I'll be growing lettuce. If necessary, I could do low tunnels under the high tunnel to get the extra temperature, but for lettuce I don't think it'll be I've found farms on the East Coast in the same temperatures basically that grow lettuce like 50 to 52 weeks out of the year. So a lot of the produce that we grow here goes to the tribal kitchen. Mainly the lettuce goes to the tribal kitchen, lettuce, carrots, beets, but when they started adding the red lettuce that I grew out here to the salad bar, the numbers of people that were attending the tribal lunch program at the tribal center just went through the roof. They're like, oh, this is delicious. They didn't realize they were still eating half the regular lettuce that they used to eat. They just added the red for the color, and people were just over the moon for the salad then. And the pickles, we grow a lot of cucumbers out here, and I made dill pickles and brought those dill pickles to the kitchen. And they used to buy the big tubs of, they still do, but one tub will last a year now because nobody wants anything to do with their pickles. They're like, we need more of your pickles because nobody will eat the ones we bought.
So it's pretty much farm to table. That's great.
Trying to close the loop and keep it. The stuff that comes into the community, keep it in the community, right back into the compost, and then right back into the kitchen.
So Travis, do they have you doing any traveling to teach or to share or research?
Not yet. I'm still in the learning stage myself, getting the compost facility going and whatnot. I just got my certification for that class that I took for compost operations, and there's definitely teaching to be done in the future, though.
Have you had lots of inquiries from other parts of the state about it?
Yeah, well, even somebody in Oregon got a hold of us and was curious about what we were doing because it mentioned something on our tribal website. They saw that we were composting at the tribal garden and got in touch with my supervisor, and then she got in touch with me, and then the phone for an hour, him telling us of all the great things that they're doing on their farm. But word's still spreading, so I'm sure eventually I'll have a demonstration of how we're doing it here. I've taken video and lots of pictures of the process, but yeah, once word spreads, I'm sure we'll be teaching other folks.
So how big of a operation is it? I mean, you're not doing all this yourself, are you?
At this point, yes.
Wow.
Other than the trapping, there's 4 of us that go out and trap. Yeah, I've got a volunteer or 2. My son, I pay him on occasion when I have to have a second pair of hands. But so far it's just me, and has been for the past 8 years. Yeah, the Shoalwater Bay's natural resources. Yeah, so when I'm done here, I'll be heading out to set our traps for the green crab, and then I'll be coming back with a truckload of frozen green crab to process those, because we've got our freezer filled. So tomorrow when we go out and pull our traps, we won't have anywhere to put them. So I stockpiled the crab in our 7-foot freezer. Now we've had to overflow into another freezer. So I fill those freezers up, then process it so that I have a large stockpile, because it's a messy task. I try to do it all. Now with the numbers coming up as much as they are, I'll have to do it every other week, especially with the contributions from the county's green crabbing efforts. So during the winter I can get away with doing it every other month because the numbers are so much lower.
Did I miss what you were using for bait for the rain?
Oh, I didn't mention that. We've tried quite a few things, but mainly we buy the bait fish from South Bend Products, I think it's called. They specifically sell bait. I think it's not herring, is it? Well, some are pretty darn big, but
Sardines,
smelt,
maybe?
I think.
So there's an expense
Yeah.
to get these guys.
Yeah, the EPA funds, or the BIA, I think it's the Bureau of Indian Affairs, helps fund the tribe to purchase the airboat that we got. Actually, the airboat I believe was EPA, but the BIA funds our efforts as well as EPA. The reason that I'm able to do it, or was able to get an actual paid tribal position now, was because of EPA funding, all grants. Lots of money has been thrown at us lately for the green crab.
Do you have a grant writing committee, or did you write them?
Actually, we do have a grant writer. When it comes to stuff through natural resources, though, my supervisor and I, like the grant for the composting, we did the majority of the work on that, my supervisor and I, and then we brought all of our work to the grant writer and they submitted it.
Cleaned it up. Yeah.
Does the USU have any input so far?
Not that I've seen. Not yet.
Early stages.
What's that? I don't think so. Unless they happen to see it on our website or something.
Do you think any of the chicken byproducts from your production would be good bait for the crab versus having to buy stuff?
We've tried the chicken guts when we processed our layers, and didn't really have that great of results. We've tried fish. We get fish distribution from the Department of Fish and Wildlife when they net the rivers to take counts of the returns. Those fish go to the Chinook Indian Nation, and then after they've distributed to their tribal members, we get what's remaining, and we trade for produce. But the carcasses, we've tried using those in our crabbing efforts, and still not as good as the bait fish. So the extra added effort didn't really pay off. So that is now coming to our composting instead.
Can you demonstrate how to raise this? Is that a
Absolutely.
one-man operation?
Super easy.
It looks like a
The wind-up thing.
oh wow. Man, I'll have to get one of these. That's the way to do it. That is too cool.
Wow.